How do you make sure that your presentation goes off without a breeze? That's exactly what one of our 360 Leaders Club members asked me recently. She said, Lucy, I should be okay with the material if I spend time practicing in advance, but I'm very nervous about the Q&A. I either freeze too much or talk too much when I'm put in the spot, and I would love to be able to answer confidently or even confidently deflect questions. Any tips? Well, if you know me, I have some tips that you can put into practice right away. So be sure to listen to this short episode and let me know which one helped most. I really think you're going to love the last one. You know this feeling all too well. You have to speak at an event or present a new idea or a solution to senior stakeholders or important clients, and that feeling of nervousness sets in. The sweaty palms, the overanalyzing and the overthinking. The practicing in front of the mirror and the constant self-doubt and the noise in your mind of, well, what if I mess it up? In fact, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, about 73% of people experience fear when speaking in public in front of people. Like, how crazy is that? 73%. So this means there's a significant number of our audience here today that are likely nervous about presenting rather than showing up, owning your worth, and showing your true leadership authority. So I thought I'd hop on the show and talk about this and give you some tips from somebody who used to absolutely cringe at the thought of speaking in front of an audience to somebody who now feels super, super comfortable. So I'm going to be sharing my 5 biggest tips to stop your pre-presentation nerves in their tracks, and I promise you they are so, so good. So before I teach you the secrets, I would love to ask you to rate and review this podcast. I love Lucy and the 360 Leadership Podcast. The content is so valuable to me. Thank you. If that sounds like you, please consider rating and reviewing my show. This really helps me support more people just like you move towards the career and life that they deserve. All you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts, click on the show, scroll to the bottom, tap to rate with 5 stars and select write a review. Or if you're listening on Spotify, simply hit those 5 stars. I would so appreciate it. Okay, now before I get into the show, I just want to tell you a quick story. This episode was inspired by a recent question from a 360 Leaders Club member, and it's something that comes up time and time again. Every month in 360, we have various different coaching calls that you can come to. And one of our calls, you can submit your question in advance, so I have time to prepare and give you the best advice possible, specifically tailored to your unique situation. You've literally got on-demand executive coaching, which is so cool. I love being able to do that. And it's not just me. You'll also get tips from the group too, and you'll always take golden nuggets, which is so fab. So this particular lady asked, would you have any tips for calming the nerves before a big presentation? And you would not believe the amount of times I've been asked this question. One of our leaders was recently invited to speak on a panel, and since she's joined 360, she has recognized the importance of really pushing herself out of her comfort zone to step in and step up into her authority. And she's really starting to really embrace that now. She's saying that it's helping her, and she's patting herself on the back because every time you take action out of your comfort zone, you build confidence. So today I'm going to share with you some of the strategies that I use with my clients to cut the nerves before presentations so that you can step into your worth as your female leader, okay? Because you're amazing. So let's picture this. You've been asked to deliver a big presentation. It might be speaking at an industry event. It might be delivering a pitch in work. It's something where you're kind of going, oh my God, like I really don't want to do this because what if it all goes wrong? You put a lot of pressure on yourself to get it right and probably spend hours laboring over your presentation, trying to get it perfect. But there's a few things that maybe you don't focus your attention on that would actually make you feel more confident. A big mistake that I see is a lot of us spend time trying to get the slides right, as opposed to shifting your mindset so that you show up confidently. Because let's face it, you are an expert. You know your stuff. But sometimes that self-doubt, that inner critic takes over, and then you don't show up the way you want to show up and you're left reeling with yourself afterwards. Have you ever been there? Or maybe you show up and you're semi-proud, but you know you could have done a better job, right? So whichever camp you lie in, I hope these 5 tips will help. The first tip is to know your content, but don't over-prepare. I am a firm believer in preparing, but not over-preparing. Because I believe that you've got to trust your abilities. If you're an expert in your field and you're presenting on something, you know more than you think you know. Okay, so it's about knowing your content, designing your slide deck in a way that is easy, starting with a story so you can bring people along, because we know that people are 22 times more likely to remember data and your content if you tell them a story. Did you know that? And from the science of positive psychology, we know that storytelling is a huge factor in the meaning pillar, which is something that we need as humans. So make sure that you know your content and that you include stories in it, but just don't over prepare, because you're just trying to be in control of things you're not in control of, okay? You know your stuff. The second thing I would recommend is that, and this is really important, so if you're multitasking, come back over here to me. Make it all about educating your audience. Less about you and more about them. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Make it less about you and more about your audience. What do I mean by that? Most people show up on stage or to present something, and it's like you feel like you're naked. You feel like they're going to ask you something that you're not going to know. They're going to catch you out. You're thinking, they know I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be here. Whatever those thoughts that you're having in your mind are, okay? But I'm afraid to break it to you. It's not about you. It's about you adding value to your audience. So once I made that mindset shift myself, it changed the game for me. When I first started my business and I started this podcast, I was terrified because I thought people are going to think she doesn't know her stuff and people are going to think that and who am I and all those voices, right? No. As soon as I shifted my mindset to I am here to deliver value to you, to support you in your career, I'm here for something bigger than me, all the nerves go away. Do I get it right all the time? No. Does anybody get it right all the time? No. It doesn't make you any less of an expert. It doesn't make you any less of a leader, okay? So I invite you to make it all about how can I add value to this audience? How can I educate them, inspire them, entertain them, motivate them, whatever your reason for your presentation is, and less about you, because when you make it about them and what you can give to them, as opposed to how you're feeling, you're going to show up with a different energy. The third thing then is I invite you to make a very important mindset shift if somebody asks you a question. If you're the kind of person that dreads Q&A after a presentation in case you don't know something, I invite you to consider this fact. If somebody is asking you a question, actually, they are in a vulnerable position because they don't know the answer, right? So instead of you thinking you're the one in the vulnerable position, I invite you to actually think, well, actually, they're in the vulnerable position because they're asking me the question. So I invite you to meet them in the vulnerability and even make a joke about it, right? Say if you don't know the answer and somebody asks you a question, that brings me on to the next one. It's point number 4 is you just own what you know and own what you don't know. I remember when I was doing my PhD, of which I ended up doing a master's because I just couldn't stick it any longer. I was supposed to do a PhD, but I did a master's in the end. And I remember I was at a conference in UCD, I think it was, in Dublin. And I was asked to deliver a presentation on my thesis, which was all on, here's a fun fact, I was trying to make a genetically modified variety of clover, which was going to support it was a natural fertilizer because it what was it around? It was a fixation of nitrogen in the grass, which was going to help the farmers basically to reduce there's a particular fungus which was spreading all around the fields, and I was trying to develop a variety of clover which would help with that. Fun fact. So I was a scientist for many years, but my passion always lay in the stuff that I did today. So I was always a people person, very strategic, but like I'm not a very analytically minded person. I had to train myself to be. So I was terrified getting up on that stage. And I remember I said to him, like, what if somebody asked me something that I don't know? I was only in my 20s. And he said to me, this is what you say. Great question. That's not my area, and direct it to somebody else. Or that's a great question. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm happy to take your email and follow you up later because I want to make sure I'm giving you the correct information. Whatever way it is, don't try and spoof something. If you don't know the answer, just say, I'm actually not sure about that. I need to check it out. I'll come back to you later. Or deflect to somebody else who's there who might be better positioned to answer it. But you do it in an energy of ownership as opposed to, oh God, that's not my area. More of a great question. That's not my area of expertise. But Dave, you have been working on this, right? Can you give your insights on this? And you say it with confidence if you don't know, okay? Because I always tell you on the show, confidence sells. And then the fifth tip I have for you is to set an intention to speak slower and trust you will say the right thing. You might be a seasoned pro at communication, but in my experience, I know for me, if I'm nervous, I speak fast. So set an intention to speak slower, knowing that your audience want to hear from you. They don't know that you have all these doubts. They see you as an expert. So set an intention to just speak slower because it's going to slow down your thought process as well. And it's going to give you space to be able to get the right words out. And leave strategic pauses when you're speaking. So you can speak fast if you're a fast talker like me, but then you have to leave a little pause so that the brain of your audience can actually digest what you've said. Don't just rabbit. You've got to leave those little pauses to allow the penny drop moments. And just trust yourself. You know what you're doing. So there are my 5 tips for getting rid of the nerves. I'd love to hear from you. Which one did you find most valuable? Which one were you like, I'm going to try that one? Or maybe you were doing them already. I always love hearing from you guys. So feel free to send me a DM. I'd love to hear if you used something and it worked. It would give me a lot of energy back because my team and I put so much into this podcast for you. It would be super to hear from you. And if you have enjoyed this episode of the show, there's another couple of episodes I recommend you check out. The first one is episode 118, which is how to conquer imposter syndrome in leadership. If you are having nerves because you're doubting yourself or you have imposter syndrome, I think this episode will be useful for you. Episode number 98 then is with the lovely Gina London, which is leadership communication mastery. And episode number 96 is what to do if you lack confidence as a senior leader. Recommend you check those one out. So that's it for this week's episode of the show. Just quickly summarize. The 5 tips I'm giving you is number 1, know your content, tell stories, but do not over prepare. Number 2, make it all about your audience and the value you're bringing to them and less about you worrying about what they're thinking about you. Number 3, shift your mindset if somebody asks you a question and remember it's actually them in the vulnerable position, not you, because they don't know the answer. Number 4, own what you know, own what you don't know. And if somebody asks you a question you don't know, great question, that's not my area. Dave, can you add some light on this? With confidence, okay? And number 5 is set an intention to speak slower, leave strategic pauses, and trust you will say the right thing. So that's it for this week's episode of the show. Like I shared earlier, we are opening up 12 spots in 360 Leaders Club to start with us on the 1st of October. Now, I know these spots are going to go fast and the waitlist will always get first refusal. So if you've been thinking about reaching out and you're ready to advance your career with confidence, you're ready for coaching, you're ready to change your freaking life by investing in yourself so that by the end of 2024, you are going to be well on your way, if not already there to where you want to be, go to 360leadersclub.com/waitlist. Pop your name down there on the wait list and I'll be in touch to arrange a call to make sure it's a good fit. And then you can start with us on the 1st of October. There are so many amazing women in there I cannot wait to introduce you to. And if you're listening to this and it is not October right now, you can reach out to me and I can let you know when we will be taking on new members again. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you're well. I hope you're ready to go and rock that presentation the next time. Until next time, next Wednesday, same time, same place. Bye for now.